ladies and gentlemen. Well, here we are for part 2. Today, Ricky's gonna take the strings off and do some work on this fine Epiphone Les Paul. In addition, I got another camera angle set up. We're a real high-class outfit today. Just you wait.
Hello, Richard from budgetguitarist.com. Last week, I went over the tools that you will need to work on your Epiphone Les Paul. Today, we're going to start working on it. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take the strings off. We're going to clean the fretboard. We're going to clean the body. We're going to clean the hardware. We're going to polish the frets up. We're going to put some Big Ben's nut sauce inside of the nut slots. We're going to check the straightness of the neck, and we're going to adjust the truss rod. That sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. My goal really here is to show you everything there is to know. So I'm not really suggesting that every time you change the strings that you go through this big, huge process. But it's a good idea to know all this stuff. This is sort of what a professional guitar setup would look like. So if you're into this kind of stuff, I'm going to show you how I do it. This is not necessarily the only way to do it, but it is a way. So anyway, let's get started. As you can see here, let me show the camera a little bit. Now maybe you can't see. We've got some nasty, nasty old strings on this beautiful looking instrument. And we're going to take the strings off. So best way to take the strings off, cordless screwdriver with inexpensive attachment, right? Remember, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, except in this case. Because in this case, we want to go clockwise to loosen the strings. So let's go ahead and loosen all the strings. Man, these strings are nasty. Okay, I've loosened all the strings. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to clip them. It's really important that you loosen the strings before you clip them, or you could clip it and it could spring right up and cut your bottom lip, and then you'd feel like a doofus. Okay. Now, super important, I'm going to take the tailpiece off here. When I take this bridge off, I want to make sure that none of these saddles fall out. I want to make sure that I keep them exactly where they are. Let me see if I can give you a close-up of this. That's pretty good. You can see this is kind of old and nasty. I'm going to try to clean it up a bit. But you can see how it kind of follows the radius of the fretboard a little bit. So it's important that each saddle remain in its perspective and appropriate slot. We're going to clean that up. Okay, so get rid of these. Come here, yo. Yeah. You want to play them rough. One of the most important tools you need, a waste basket. Oh, look, we got Pop-Tarts, barbecue potato chips. No wonder. Now, because of the way I put my strings on, for a quick change. They come off really easy. Next week, when we put strings on the guitar, you're going to learn that there's a whole bunch of different ways you can put strings on. And the way I like to do it is for the quickest possible string change. So there's all kinds of different knots you can tie, etc., and so on, but I prefer something where I can get the strings off quick. That way, if you ever have to change a string at a gig, you know, you're not futzing around with some sailor's knot.
Army lad, Davy Jones himself tied this knot before he went down in the briny blue.
Okay, strings are off. Let's clean the fretboard. This fretboard actually needs a lot more attention than I can give it today. So I think what I'm going to do is just use a little bit of naphtha, aka lighter fluid, and just kind of get some of the grime off. So I'm going to take this cloth here, put some naphtha on it, and just kind of scrub. You might not need to use naphtha. it does tend to dry out wood. So of course, it's super important when we're done with this that we put oil on the fretboard. But you know, some people get a whole bunch of dead skin cells and grime and gunk on their fretboard, and they call it mojo. And they think that it makes their guitar look cool, or they think it makes it sound. It doesn't look cool. It doesn't sound good. It's just gross. You know, it's like wearing the same pair of jeans for like 2 weeks. That's not cool. You know. What about when Jim Morrison did it? No, it wasn't cool when he did it. People around him said that he reeked, like he smelled really bad. Anybody read No One Here Gets Out Alive? That was in the book. For you youngsters, look up The Doors. Jim Morrison was like the rebellious rock star. Okay, so I get a bunch of gunk off it, and now I'm going to take another part of this and just kind of make sure it's dry. There's no excess naphtha on here, which there isn't. Okay. Now, before I put oil on the fretboard, I think I'm going to go ahead and polish the frets. There's a lot of different ways that you can do that. You can use these polishing cloths. You can find these at Hobby Lobby or, you know, any kind of hobby store. And it's sort of, it's not like sandpaper. It's like super smooth sandpaper almost. It's designed for polishing things, so frets, yeah. Or you can do what the pros do, and you can use something called fret erasers. I got these from Stu Mac. There are a bunch of generic versions. I didn't include these in the tools episode last week because this is, I don't know, I think this is probably a bit overkill, you know, when you change your strings. It's not really necessary, but if you're really into this idea of polishing your frets, you can pick up a set of these. They're kind of expensive, but they last for a really, really, really long time. And I'm just going to show you the basics of how these work. Let me line them up. So they come in grit, just like sandpaper is 220. This is 400, or is it 440? I can't read it anymore. 800, 1200, 2000, and then at that point in time I'd probably move on to the polishing cloths. So what some people will do is they'll tape off the fretboard first, because if you sand your fretboard with this, it will leave some scratches on the wood. So you probably don't want to do that, but you know, if you're really careful, you can get away with doing this without the tape. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to go through each fret. All the way up the fretboard. Okay, then move on to the 400. See, I'm using my finger as a guide here so I don't go down onto the wood. Now, you don't want to go to town because you don't really want to take that much material off. We're trying to polish the frets. We're not trying to do a new level crown here. Okay, 800. Notice also I'm not going like this with it, right? Because that would leave micro scratches pointing in the wrong direction. We want to go in the direction that your string would actually bend. So as you're bending a string, you want to sand in that direction. Okay. 1200. And then I could go ahead and move on to the polishing cloths, but I think I'll skip it. I want to make this video last forever. So now that I've polished my frets, I'm going to go ahead and apply some oil to the fretboard. I don't want to use this. I want to use a different cloth. So you don't want to gunk this stuff on. You just want to, you know, get some on each fret. Oop, get on there, you. On. It gets tough up here. There we go. And I'm just gonna rub it in. And so what this does is it moisturizes the wood, because you don't want the wood to get dry. If you get dry wood, then what can happen is it can crack. Oh, this is looking good. It's a nice fretboard on this guitar. At some point in time, I'm going to do a complete refret of this instrument, and I will be filming that for anybody who cares. I'm well aware that some people don't want to see all of this stuff, but I'm putting this up because every once in a while somebody might come to my channel and say, oh, you know, I've seen some videos on doing maintenance on your guitar. Maybe I'll see what the budgetguitarist.com channel has, and I want to make sure we're doing a good job for those people. Okay, fretboard is in good shape. Let's clean the hardware. So to clean the hardware, hello B camera, I'm going to use a little bit of steel wool. Now, super important thing about steel wool, it's actually metal, right? These little fragments are very easily attracted to your guitar pickups. So you don't want to get this anywhere near these. So see how shiny that's looking? This does a really good job. Again, you just want to be careful because you don't want these metal strands to like end up attached to your pickups. Some people would use a Dremel for this kind of stuff, and you can do that. I do have a Dremel, but you know, wow, look at all that. Look at that gunk on my cloth here. I might have to shake this outside or something. Kind of wipe away any excess steel wool. Put that back on. Let's do this guy now. Carefully. Can you see what a nice job that does? Look at that. There's a good angle right there to kind of show you. Yeah. So when you put these saddles back on, there's some debate as to whether it should go with the screws facing the headstock or the screws facing this way. Well, no. The screws should face the headstock because that way you can actually adjust them. See, if they're on this side, it's not so easy to get a screwdriver in there. All right, let's polish the body. So I have got some Dunlop guitar polish cleaner. I'm not going to spray it on the body. I'm going to spray it on the rag. You know, I want to polish the back of this, so actually I'm going to take these back off again, because if I don't, the second I lift this guitar up, they're going to go flying. Just polish the back. All the way around. Let's do the neck. Yeah. Might as well do the headstock. Just kind of, mostly I'm getting rid of dust. Okay, now this back on. Put this guy back on carefully. And here's a little trick. So you can have some gunk and other junk build up in these slots, in the bridge slots here, and also in the nut slots. If you take some really fine sandpaper, like a 1200, or this is even a 2000, and you just kind of run it inside each one of those slots, just a little bit, that can help if there's any gunk in there. And then down here at the nut. Okay. Now again, we're not going to put the strings on. Where's my strings? I'm not going to put these on until next week because I want to keep these videos reasonably short. I want to put a little bit of big bends in here. So I've got a toothpick And what I'm going to do is just put a tiny bit of this stuff, just a teeny bit, inside of each slot, like that. I'll take the toothpick and just kind of work it in there. You don't want to gunk it in there because it'll actually deaden the string. You just want the teeniest bit. That's why this stuff lasts so long. So that takes care of that. Okay, so now we're going to check the neck straightness, and this is totally optional. So if you have one of these notch straight edges, it's important not to put the thing on crooked. So what you want to do is kind of position yourself over the top and make sure you're going right straight down the middle. And then what I like to do is actually just hold this up to the light and see. I want to make sure I'm touching here and I'm touching here. I want my neck to be straight, basically. This neck is not straight. Now, why do I want the neck straight? Well, because when I put the strings on, the neck's going to have a little bit of relief just from the pressure of the strings. I'd rather start with a straight neck and know what I'm dealing with, put the strings on, then I can adjust my truss rod. So I want to start with a straight neck. So let me get my truss rod key here. Okay. So the truss rod I can feel is super, super loose. It's basically entirely loosened. And what I want to do is tighten it up maybe about a quarter turn. So about that much. Then I'm going to check it again. How are we looking now? Okay, that's really good. So I know the neck is straight. So my guitar is cleaned. I got everything all set. I got my slots cleaned. And we are ready for the next step. Now, do you have to do all this? No, you don't have to do any of this. You can take the strings off and put the new strings on. But again, I'm just trying to show you all the things that you could do. So you don't go through this entire routine every time you change your strings, but every once in a while, if you want your guitar to be set up as well as possible, these are some of the things that you can do. So next week, we're going to put the strings on. We're going to roughen the intonation. We're going to set the action, and then we're going to set the final intonation, and then we're going to be done. So that'll be part 3. This is going to be a 3-part series. So thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, please consider subscribing or giving us a thumbs up. And I will see you again, as usual, next Friday at 5.